Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light, pull a gun on the owner of a liquor store. You think it's cool, well, act a fool if you like. Cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think it's tough? Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here we take care of our own. You cross that line.
You know, folks, when you're on a mission, you're on a mission. And because we all have a common cause, a common denominator. And in this case, you've met TANAWAH Downing, and we have Carol coming on. And by the way, just for everyone to see this, this is called a receipt. We are actually in Des Moines, just ate at a Subway. I'll leave it at that, but yeah, that's our receipt. We're here tonight in Des Moines. I just met up with you, TANAWAH.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. We're all in it together.
And you and I and another friend of companion of yours here, the three of us went looking for some criminals.
We need to remember who the criminals are, because as I've said numerous times, that if our country is being led by criminals, then they will create an environment of criminality, which will then produce a society of criminals. So I don't blame the people for the crimes that they're out committing, because if our country is being led by individuals who are committing embezzlement and extortion every single day, then we can expect the citizens to be following in the same path. That's why you're experiencing as much crime and unjust practices all across the country by these public officials, because I'll tell you what, they're following their leaders. So it's time for us to go ahead and make sure that everybody knows we are no longer going to follow criminals, because we are good people with good intentions and good laws, and we're going to make sure that we follow the laws from now on. Because if our leaders are not following the laws, it's up to us to make a decision. Do we want to be a criminal? The answer is no. We don't want to be criminals. We don't want a society of criminality. So yeah, absolutely. We're out looking for criminals. I'm out fighting crime from the top down.
So Carol, you're joining us tonight. I'd really like to, if you don't mind, Carol, and I have never spoken to everyone, so TANAWAH has spoken with her. I think it would be only proper for TANAWAH to speak with her. Let's kind of stand back, everyone together, and let's hear a true situation, a true story, if you don't mind. Carol, wave.
Let me just lead in. So everybody, you know, I've been saying for quite some time here that the point of the tour is yes, I'm going to be out here and I'm going to be talking about the criminality of our leadership. And I'm going to be doing it over and over and over again every single day from a different state, a different capital. That's what I'm doing. But this tour is not about me, okay? Because any nation that does not learn from its mistakes is doomed to repeat them. We don't want to repeat these ever again. But the way that the nation is going to learn from its mistakes is by learning from the mistakes of the people. So I've said long ago, and I continue to say it now, is that what we've got to do is we've got to hear from the people. We need to know what's happening to them, what has harmed them, the unjust practices of the system, because that's the way that we're going to learn from this mistake. And so right now, Miss Carol has a terrible story of just terrible, unjust actions by our government that has absolutely decimated her life and destroyed her family. And this is the exact type of story that we want to make sure that we get out there on every single step of this tour. So today, you know, the press is, they're not really overly interested in speaking with us, but that's fine, because we can create our own news. We can talk about this, create our own stories. And the stories that I want to tell are the stories that people that are being oppressed, taken advantage, and are being destroyed by the system. And Carol is the perfect example. So right now, we are in a state, and we are preparing to to provide service to this particular state attorney general. Carol is who we're providing service on behalf of. And so again, what we're doing here is I don't have standing in this state that I'm in because I've never been affected by the laws of this state. So I can't enjoin the state in the federal litigation that I have against the state of Washington. However, the people here in the state of Iowa, they're affected in the exact same ways that the state of Washington affected me. Therefore, I can enjoin the state by bringing in and providing service on the attorney general for an individual. Only one individual is necessary who's been impacted by the laws in the same way that Washington state impacted me. And so that's where Carol comes into play. Carol is key to this particular state because through her and through this criminal affidavit that we're about to serve, through her, we will be able to provide, once I win the case, we will provide to vicarious relief through Carol, relief to all of the families, all of the prisoners, everyone here in the state of Iowa, because it only takes one. It only takes one to change everything. So I will come from the top. I will provide relief through the Mott family in Ohio, through the Windy family in Indiana, through the Needsport family in Michigan, and so on. So each one of these states, we have one individual that is providing the criminal affidavit. I'm serving it on the chief legal officer for the state, and in doing so, we are enjoining each one of these states into federal litigation so that when I win, we will see complete change across the entire nation. Okay? So Carol here, she's got a story. I want you guys to hear the story, and I want you guys to understand what has happened to her and her family, the destruction that has occurred. I want you guys to understand this story is real. This is the truth, okay? It's not something that the court makes up in order to create a criminal. This is coming from someone that actually has to live this every single day. Once we finish this story with Carol, we're going to come back, and Vincent and I, we're going to talk a little bit about the legality of it and all the laws and how it affects everybody. So, Carol, thank you so much for being so brave, stepping up, working with us, and we shall be free to set this country free. Thank you.
Go ahead, Carol, please.
Well, basically, this all started in 2019. Basically, it destroyed my life. It destroyed my family. They stole my grandchildren. It resulted in my daughter's death. My children are left without a mother. I'm left without a daughter. I had to bury my daughter August 7th, 2022. And it's still not over, and it's annihilated me from my grandchildren. It's annihilated my grandchildren from me. My grandchildren live about 5 minutes from me. I can't see them. They deny me access to my grandchildren, and it's basically has just completely destroyed my life.
How did this start? When you say in 2019, what specifically kicked this into motion?
Allegations that were put out, allegations from CPS, and that's how it started out. Allegations.
Carol, were you ever given the opportunity to be able to confront those allegations that CPS had given you? You know, when they raised those allegations, were you ever asked, you know, are they true? Were you ever asked for your side of the story?
I refused to talk to them at first, and then yes, I did. I was threatened. I was intimidated. I was threatened before I testified that if I talked about anything that they would throw me in jail. By the judge, by the prosecutor.
They said to you that if you speak to your grandchildren, despite the fact that they hadn't proven that you were guilty of anything, right? But they told you if you speak to your grandchildren that they're going to throw you into jail.
Yes.
Now, is your husband, your husband at the time, he is in jail, isn't he?
Yes.
He's in prison, isn't he?
Yes.
And he's serving 2 life sentences on allegations that he never had the opportunity to confront, isn't he?
Yes.
So you lost your husband, you lost your daughter, and you lost your grandchildren, all based upon some allegations from the state CPS system that you never had the opportunity to be able to say, no, these aren't true. Is that accurate?
I had an opportunity to say they were not true, but they did not believe me.
Okay.
They told me that I
Tell me
was a
about that.
liar. Huh? They told me that I was a liar, that they did not believe me. They told me they did not believe me, and they threatened, basically they threatened me, intimidated me, and everything, and it didn't matter what I had to say because it wasn't important to them. They did not want to hear me.
Yeah. Well, I'm very sorry about all that. So you were also charged with some offenses as well, right? So
Yes.
so just to understand a little bit better. So first off, CPS came in with an allegation that someone made of some endangerment to your grandchildren, right? And as I understand, your daughter, she was having some issues with drugs. She was unhappy and having some issues. And they felt as though that was sufficient enough to be able to take the children away, charge you with crimes. But you were never convicted of those crimes, were you?
Was I convicted of a crime?
Right. You were so they charged you with crimes, but you were never arrested for those crimes. You were never convicted of those crimes, but yet you remain on a child endangerment registry. Is that correct?
Yes.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah.
How do they do that? How do they get away with this?
So everybody, this is exactly what I'm out here fighting right now. You guys got to understand the nature of this system, because her husband was charged by information. In fact, I received the transcripts just a little bit ago from Carol, and it says trial by information. So what you guys got to understand is that there's three ways to charge a person with a crime. One is a presentment to a grand jury. Another is an indictment from a grand jury. And the third is information. Now, let me tell you the history of information so that you understand where it comes from, because it has some common sense behind it in their rationale. What happens with information is that someone comes forward with an accusation, right? And they reduce that accusation to writing, and then they present it in the form of an affidavit. Now, at common law, an affidavit is considered truth. It's considered truth because it's presented as facts, right? So the problem is, and there's a number of problems, but one of the initial problems is that who is, because the Fourth Amendment says that there shall be no warrants issued, but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation. So who's providing the evidence or the information and then swearing by oath that it's accurate and correct? Is it the witness that had firsthand a witness test, or is it an officer who goes and talks with the accuser and then presents the information as though it's fact, supported by oath or affirmation? The answer is that it's an officer who is not a witness to any of it, but yet he presents an accusation in the form of information saying, I attest to this information is accurate and correct by oath or affirmation. You see, the officer is not the witness. So when he presents the information as though it's factual, who's the accuser? It's the officer. And the officer works for the state, right? And so the whole issue that we're talking about, everything I'm bringing forward to the court right now, has to do with the fact that when the state is a party in a cause, it cannot be presumed to be neutral and biased, and thus it cannot be the judge in the cause. That judge has to recuse himself because he has a conflict of interest. He works for the plaintiff. That's supported by Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution, where it says, in all cases in which a state shall be party, the Supreme Court shall have original jurisdiction. So, Carol, what happened to your family was that an agent of the state decided that they didn't like how things were happening in your household. Now, right or wrong, there's better ways to deal with things, you know, but we're not going to go into the factual issues. What we're going to say is that when a state comes forward with the accusation through one of its agents, the CPS, through the authority of the prosecuting attorney for that county, then, Carol, everything is working against you and your family at that point in time because the state has taken a side against you. And so now we have law enforcement who works for the state, who's working to secure the best interest of their master, the state. We've got the judge who's working in the best interest of his master, the state. We've got CPS working for their best interest, the master of the state. So this issue of information, the history behind it is that, let's say, for instance, I get pulled over and someone searches me, and let's say it's a completely lawful and legal search, and it's an officer that's searching me, and he finds drugs on me, right? Well, the system and the state knew that they could not be a party in the cause, but yet it's an officer of the state that's providing that accusation, that's searching me and finding that evidence. So they needed to create a new accuser, right? Because it couldn't be the officer that would be the accuser. So they created this accuser that's nothing. It's called information. But the problem with information is, first off, your right to confront your accusers evaporates the moment that information is the accuser, is the accusing body, because you can't put that information on stand and cross-examine it. Can't do it. And so your right to confront your accusers immediately evaporates, and thus you have no confrontation. But then likewise, then this is a long history. It's called a trial by affidavit, or in the transcripts that you sent me, a trial by information. So when you have a trial by information, what happens is that you have what's known as an irrefutable presumption of guilt. So Carol, you were really never given the opportunity to tell your side of the story because you were presumed to be guilty based upon the mere fact of being charged with a crime. And so when you're presumed to be guilty based upon the mere fact of being charged with a crime, that means that you are guilty until proven innocent. It means you have to go out and collect evidence in order to prove your innocence. And when this happens, you see there's a shift in the burden of proof. Mm-hmm. Here in America, we believe that the burden of proof lies upon the prosecutor. The prosecutor must prove beyond a reasonable doubt that this person committed the crime. We all hear that. We were educated that in third grade, that you are innocent until proven guilty, and that the prosecutor has to prove that you're guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. But that doesn't happen with information. It doesn't happen. Because when you're charged with a crime, such as your husband, when he was charged with a crime, he was immediately arrested. He was immediately taken to jail. He was immediately deprived of his life, his liberty, his property, the ability to generate revenue, the ability to be free, based upon an accusation that he didn't have the opportunity to be able to confront. So we don't know if he's guilty or not, because the problem is that guilt is a process, and we have to follow that process, and we don't. But we cannot say that justice has been administered, and we certainly cannot say the truth has been ascertained. So this whole system that we're in today, every single state in the nation is doing this. That's why I'm traveling this country and I'm doing it. I'm bringing this issue to these attorney generals all across the nation, because there is no innocent until proven guilty anymore. Because we have the states that are choosing to treat people unequally. Because every single person is entitled to fair and equal application of laws. We know that. That's a maximum government. Laws must apply equally to every single person. But in the same way, every single person is entitled to fair and equal governing. And the reason why is because if our government is responsible for administering and enforcing the laws, then an attribute of fair and equal application of laws must be fair and equal governing. So when government chooses to take a side with one party or another, it is no longer governing. It's now ruling. And it's not applying the laws equally, because it's failing to govern equally. So we have a complete shift in every single thing that we believe in here in America. It is not innocent until proven guilty. It is not the prosecutor that has to prove that you're guilty, right? And so as a result, we have a lot of people that are in prison right now today that are there illegally and unlawfully in violation of the procedures and process established and codified in the Constitution of the United States. There's more than 700,000 people across America right now sitting in a for-profit industry for the direct benefit of the state that we call a sweatshop in China, but a prison here in America. It's not prison. It's not justice. It's slavery. And we have 140,000 prisoners in the state of Florida, right? And they have over 40,000 of those prisoners that are serving life without parole in a state where its own constitution says that you cannot have life without parole. And yet every single day they issue life without parole. Their own state, their own laws. The state of Florida does not follow their own constitution, and every single day they issue life without parole, despite the fact that their constitution states you cannot have life without parole. Now I know this because I spent time with people in Florida. You know, we've dealt with this issue. But let me tell you what happened in Florida. This is an issue where the laws are not being followed by their own government, right? But when they try to take it to the federal court and say, hey, my rights are being violated, you know what the federal court says? That's a state issue. Go back and argue with the state. We don't have jurisdiction, right? Just because the state doesn't follow their laws doesn't mean that you could come into federal court and ask us to, you know, to enforce the state laws. We have a huge, huge problem here in America because those 140,000 prisoners that are sitting in Florida, you know, they don't get paid a cent for the work that they do. And I bet you guys didn't know that they build the chipset for General Electric's fighter jets. They answer the phones for Northrop Grumman's help desk. We know that in Georgia, the female prison is sewing tags on Victoria's Secret underwear. They don't get paid a cent. This isn't justice. This is slavery, okay? So when we understand the foundation of the system, then we can understand the motivation of the system. And the motivation of the system is to generate revenue at the expense of the citizenry. So Carol, what's happened to you and your family? You know, I want to tell you that every single day I hear the same stories over and over and over again. You know, what's happening to you, you want to say it's so foreign to everything that I believe in here in America. I'm so foreign from everything I've been told about America, that I've been taught about America, and that your story is so unique. And I'm going to tell you, it is unique from your perspective. But across America, this is happening to millions and millions of people. And we need to wake up to this truth, that what we believe in is not real. It's not real. So, Carol, your family was destroyed, and it was destroyed unlawfully by an institution that wants to generate revenue. And that is the absolute factual truth right there. So, when they came forward and they charged your husband by information and not by indictment, they broke the law and they committed a felony. That prosecuting attorney did. So, the way it works is this. The United States Constitution, Clause 1 of Amendment 5 says, no person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury. Your husband was charged with an infamous crime because Title 18, subsection 4083 says that an infamous crime is any crime punishable by more than 1 year imprisonment in a penitentiary. So if you can get more than 1 year, it is an infamous crime. Now, United States versus Coachman, United States Supreme Court decision, they came out and they said that it's not the amount of time that you can be sentenced or that you get sentenced to, but the amount of time you can be sentenced to. So most gross misdemeanors are also infamous crimes because you can get more than 1 year. Just because you get sentenced for 3 months doesn't make it infamous. It's the amount of time you can get sentenced to that brings on the infamous act. So when he was charged by information, Title 18, subsection 555 says information can only be used for non-infamous crimes. That's the law. So only misdemeanors can be used, or information can only be used to charge for misdemeanors. And yet your husband is sitting in prison right now on a charging instrument that was supposed to only be used for misdemeanors. He spent the rest of his life in prison, despite the fact that he had a right and a guarantee preserved, enumerated in the Constitution. We can all read it. We can all see it. There's no denying it. And yet he didn't get it. So, like earlier today, we were in Minnesota, St. Paul. We served the Attorney General there, the one assistant Attorney Generals. And I'm going to tell you that what happened was I gave this assistant Attorney General the information, the affidavit. And it's clear, it's very simple, right? That on such and such date, this prosecuting attorney relied upon an inferior state law to deprive a person of a right guaranteed by the Constitution. That is deprivation of rights under color of law. Let me tell you what that particular statute says. It's Title 18, subsection 242. And it says, any person who, under the color of any state statute, ordinance, custom, or regulation, deprives any person of any right secured by the Constitution, commits that crime. So tell me, how is it that that prosecuting attorney relied upon an inferior state law to deprive a person of a right guaranteed by the Constitution? Tell me how they did not break that law. Now, more importantly, that law was specifically written for prosecutors, for judges, for law enforcement. You can go out to the FBI's website right now, go down to deprivation of rights under color of law, and it will specifically state judges, prosecutors, law enforcement, correction officers, mental health officials. It is written for government. And you want to know why? Because who is it that can deprive a person who operates under color of law but government? Right? That law wasn't created for the people of the United States. That's not enforcement against us. That's an enforcement against them. Because only a prosecutor, a judge, or a law enforcement officer can operate under color of law. They're the only ones that can deprive under color of law. So when you say to me that a judge isn't accountable to that law, or a prosecutor isn't accountable to that law, I'm going to call you a liar. Right? I'm going to call you a liar because either one, you're incompetent, or two, you have no idea about the history of the law. Because that law was created for judges, for prosecutors, for law enforcement officers. The history behind that law is Brown versus Board of Education. That is the enforcement statutes of the Civil Rights Act, right? So when we create civil rights for people and we say we want to enforce the civil rights because the judges in the South were refusing to desegregate, well, we had to create statutes that's going to make them obey the law and guarantee that every single person, no matter where they choose to reside, is entitled to the very rights that are guaranteed to them by the Constitution of the United States. So how is it that we get to this state today where we have judges and law enforcement officers and attorney generals such as this afternoon where he said, I'm not going to accept service? After reading the document, after hearing what I had to say, he said, I'm not going to accept service. Well, I don't care. You already got service because I handed it to you. It's in your hands. You read it. You see, I'm authorized to be able to provide service. I have that authority. And I provided service on an attorney general, assistant attorney general in the state of Minnesota. Notice to agent is notice to principal. So the moment that I placed that document in his hands, that attorney general has been notified. The state of Minnesota has been notified. Notified of crimes that are being committed by agents of the attorney general's own office, his own agents. So under the laws of conspiracy, and they're clear, any person who, having knowledge of any of the wrongs conspired to be done, and who have the power to prevent or aid in the prevention of the commission of the same, neglects or refuses to do so, may be joined as defendants in the action. We served the Attorney General through one of his agents, direct agents. And now the Attorney General of Minnesota has a choice. They threw that document down on the ground and told me that they don't have service. Well, that's too bad, because anyone who, having knowledge of the wrongs conspired to be done, if they refuse or neglect to do something about it, they will be joined as defendants in the action. And we will hold them accountable for the crimes that they commit against the people of Minnesota, or the people of Iowa, or the people of Nebraska, or the people of Oregon, or the people of California. Every single judge, prosecutor, law enforcement officer needs to understand that what you're doing is wrong. And when you do things wrong, that's illegal. Okay? You guys are criminals, and you will remain criminals until such time as you decide to return to the established rule of law and obey the will of the people. Because we make the laws, not you. You're here to serve us. We aren't here to serve you. And we're done. We're done blindly accepting what you tell us that we have to do. Because we create the laws. I can read them just as well as anyone else. And when it says no person can be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on presentment or indictment of a grand jury, I'm going to ask, show me the indictment by a grand jury. And if you can't do it, then get that guy back home now.
TANAWAH, if I may ask, it sounds as though she's been found guilty without due process and labeled accordingly in a most malicious or vicious way.
Yeah. How does this happen? It happens because the state took a side, right? So every single proceeding is predetermined with the outcome. You guys have heard that. You all know that. Before you even walk into that courtroom, they already know which side they're going to take because they've already taken a side. So when the state takes a side, then the opposing side does not stand a chance to win, which is why when an agent of the state brings the accusation forward, you cannot win, right? CPS is an agent of the state. They are enforcing the laws of the state, right? So when they come forward, they say, you know what? I think that this child's been abused, right? Then the state says, oh, that child's been abused because one of my own agents said so. And they don't care what you have to say, Carol. They don't care. Because the doctrine of master-servant says that a servant performs mechanical duties on behalf of his master. But it says that in all cases, they will always side with what's in the best interest of their master. Always. You guys know that. If you get a paycheck from someone, you're not going to say, oh, I'm going to go against the very entity that pays my bills, right? You're not going to go against that because you get a paycheck. Well, think about that courtroom, right? In that courtroom, there's a number of different entities, right? A number of different agents. You have law enforcement, right, that's bringing forward evidence. You have a prosecutor that's attempting to prosecute you. You have a judge that's attempting to judge you. You have a defense attorney who's sworn an oath to the state itself, who's getting paid by the state. Who's there to protect you? Who's there for your protection? Is it not supposed to be the people of the United States and a jury? Where's the neutral, unbiased third party to review the state's accusations? So yeah, you know, when we, just as Thomas Jefferson said, when we consolidate all powers into a single hands, we will find ourselves in a government that will be more venal and oppressive than the one in which we separated from. We have in one hand the executive branch, being the prosecutor enforcing the law, the judicial branch being the judge administering the law, and then the legislative branch doesn't exist. There's no neutral unbiased third party. You have a complete consolidation into a single hand of the state. And as a result, you guys, you can't win. But just because you can't win doesn't mean that this isn't going to win. Because you know what? I have faith in the Constitution of the United States. You guys have faith in the Constitution of the United States. 330 million Americans have faith in the Constitution of the United States. And we're now going to come forward and we're going to enforce the Constitution of the United States. Because the Constitution was not created to protect government. The Constitution was created to protect people. That's our weapon against them. And when they break the Constitution, they break the law. And when they break the law in the pursuance of any outcome, that outcome is without force or effect, because when you commit an unconstitutional act, you must have an unconstitutional outcome. So when we lock people up in prison, so we can force them into involuntary servitude, so we can profit off of the service that they provide to for-profit businesses for the direct benefit of the state, then I'm going to say bullshit. I'm going to say bullshit on that. Because you didn't follow the rules. And you don't follow the rules, then what you do is not lawful. It's not following the rules. You cannot break the law in order to enforce the law. There's no denying that maximum law exists. And as a result, we have an awful lot of individuals running around here thinking that everything that they've done in their career is with merit. They made a lot of money, but at the end of the day, their entire careers are going to be shown to be absolutely pointless. That's why I say to all the critics and cynics that say that they're too powerful, that I'll never win, that I don't have enough money, I'm going to say, you know what? To all you critics and cynics, your lack of faith is precisely the reason why you will ultimately die accomplishing absolutely nothing in life. Because everything that you've done has been focused on how you can make money and not on what is right. Because you have never done anything right. In the history of the judicial branch, they have never followed the laws of the people. And as a result, they've never accomplished anything. It's all without force or effect.
You mentioned earlier, Tanawah, you mentioned that they basically have sovereign immunity and qualified immunity, law enforcement, that they are above the law. How is, if you're going to hold them accountable, who's going to be judging them in the long run? Or what will that process be as far as for litigation? What would that process be like?
So I'm going to tell you, ultimately the battle is going to come from the court, or ultimately the opinion will come from the court, right? Ultimately the court's going to make the opinion. But the battle's fought in the opinion of the public. That's where the battle's fought. So the war that I'm fighting right now, the battle that I'm fighting, has nothing to do with the courts. Because Gandhi once said, he said that it's not the oppressor that needs to hear the truth. They already know it and they're busy concealing it. It's the oppressed that needs to hear the truth and not the oppressor. So when we have a whole bunch of people across America that believe that we have the most just criminal justice system in the world, and that we have the best laws in the world, and that we have a fair and equal process, and that everybody that's in prison deserves to be there because innocence doesn't suffer here in America, then I'm going to say, you're a fool. You're a fool because your reality is not real. Because you don't know reality until you experience it, right?
Oh,
you know, they say that we all have our own reality. I have reality, you have a reality, but your reality is based upon your experience. So if I were to say that there's injustice in the world, you couldn't understand me unless you've experienced it. If I were to say that there's racism in the world, you couldn't understand me unless you've experienced it. So that's why two people can be standing side by side and yet have vastly differing perspectives on what's real and what's not. It doesn't make them wrong, but in order to understand what people are going through, in order to have a reality, you've got to suffer alongside them. You have to immerse yourself in their experience, right? Because no one will fight for anything that they don't believe in, and you can't believe in something unless it's real to you. So when we talk about injustice, right? We talk about, these things that have happened to Carol here and her family and the destruction of her family. Remember, Carol's daughter died, killed herself as a result of what the state did unlawfully. Her husband is now in prison for the rest of his life because of what the state did unlawfully. She has no ability to see her children or her grandchildren. They're gone because of the unlawful acts of the government, right? Her life is destroyed because the state felt as though it was necessary to move forward without complying with the very laws that bind them and create their office and give them their authority. That's not the reality that the American people have, because the American people believe in the Constitution of the United States. And yet we have an attorney general this morning, an assistant attorney general, that says, I don't care about the will of people. I don't accept service. I don't care. And that goes to show how much respect the attorney general of Minnesota has for the will of the people and the laws that they created. Because the very laws that protect the people, he said, I don't accept service. Well, I don't care if you accept service because you got served. Attorney General Byrd today, Attorney General Elliott, you've all been served. And I have 32 more services to do. And when we're done, you guys are gonna find out whether or not you have qualified immunity. I'm gonna tell you right now that when you abuse the powers that you're given in order to offend the very object that affords you your powers, you become an enemy of that object and its wrath is unavoidable. The people of the United States created the Constitution. We created your office in our sovereignty. We granted you authority because we trusted you. And you failed miserably. And you failed miserably because I don't accept service. Too bad. We're coming after you guys. We're coming after you guys. We're coming after you guys because the law is on our side. So we want you to know that if you're going to continue to stand behind this belief of sovereign immunity, well, there is no sovereign immunity, because I can open up a Black's Law dictionary just like you can. And what you're going to find when it says qualified immunity, sovereign immunity, absolute immunity, judicial immunity, prosecutorial immunity, it says immunity from civil liability. I can't sue you, but I sure the hell can hold you accountable for your crimes. United States Supreme Court, Imbler versus Pac-Man, 1978. Even judges cloaked with absolute civil immunity for centuries can still be held criminally liable for willful deprivations of constitutional rights. These are crimes. They're crimes that, as prescribed by law, are punishable by death. I didn't make that up. The people of the United States made that up. You got a problem with the things I say? Go and talk to them. Convince them to change the laws. But as prescribed today, right now, you guys are in a lot of trouble. And I would suggest that you wake up very, very quickly, because this train is moving. We're coming through this country. And by the time I make it back to Washington, D.C., if you guys haven't made the right decision, then God help you.
And that will be on June the 6th. You'll be in DC, correct?
We're going to be back on June 6th.
There you go.
You guys, you can never, ever, ever bring something from nothing without faith. So when you guys say, I don't see you on the docket yet, right? When you guys say, I don't see them doing this, I'm going to tell you that you cannot bring something from nothing without faith. You're not going to see it until you have faith. I have faith. I know where I'm going. I know when I'm going to be there, and I know what's going to be necessary to make it happen. My faith is going to bring it about. You guys need to understand that faith means that you can't see it. You're not going to see it until we bring it out, right? We have to have faith to do that. That's the Bible, guys. I mean, that scripture says it. You cannot have something and also have faith. You must have faith to bring it out. So I'm going to be there on June 6th. And I believe 100% with all my heart and all my being that I'm going to be walking to that court to present oral arguments on behalf of the people of the United States for the deprivation of rights and freedoms that have been deprived of them by this government. And that court is going to hear me. Because I'm not asking it to hear me. I'm not its servant. It's my servant. And it's going to do what I've ordered it to do. I ordered it to hear this case. And it's going to hear it. Because they are our servant. It's my servant. They don't work. I don't work for them. They work for me. And they work for you, the people. So have faith in what I'm doing. Have faith that I'm going to be able to bring about what I say I'm going to bring about. You're not going to see it today. But I'll make sure that you see it very, very soon.
Carol, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing your story. It's very painful. It truly is. And you know, Tanawah, if I may just add on to the faith, you can't give up hope. It's when you give in to defeat that you've given up on hope. And you cannot do that. You've got to, Tanawah, you said it very well. You got to have faith. And he has learned me for a very short moment of a situation I'm involved. I mean, hands down, people can just be ugly, even people in power of law enforcement agents. And those that we would like to think would protect us at times, an attorney or what have you. And of course, we want truthful news. Carol, is there anything you want to end the show with Tanawah, or say anything to him special?
Just thanks for having me, and I appreciate what he's doing to help me and the other families in all states.
Carol, you got my word. You will get your life back. It will not be the way that it was before, but we're going to restore your liberty. Okay? We're going to restore it, because what happened to you was unlawful. And when something unlawful happens, we must correct the unlawfulness by making it lawful once again. So I'm a man of my word. And when I give you my word, we're going to make it happen. Okay? You have my word that we're going to restore your liberty. You will get your grandchildren back. Okay? I promise you.
Thank you.
To everybody out there, I want to say, Carol's in a very, very difficult situation because she's now stood up against one of the biggest, most powerful entities known to man, called justice, right? But there comes a point in time when we all need to make this decision. Because if you're scared of what you might lose by standing up against them, then what I have to say to you is, look at what you have to lose if you don't stand up against them. Because what good is money going to be when we no longer have a nation, right? What good is your property going to be when you no longer have the right to own it? right? Our founders and forefathers, they knew that at some point in time, they had to step up because their lives, their property, their money, everything that they had was resting on that decision. So when I made the decision to come out here and do this, I didn't have a dollar. I didn't have a way to get anywhere. But I knew it was time. I knew it was time. And now we're picking up people. We have a support. We've got a bus, for God's sake. You know, my friend here, who's only known me for a couple of days, he's driving me around the country. Because this is what has to happen. Because if we don't do this, look at what we have to lose. Look at what Carol's already lost, right? Comes a point in time when that money's not going to be any good. And you need to accept the fact that, you know what? It's time we do something about it, because if we don't stand up, if we don't do something about it, then that money means nothing. That property means nothing. Our family means nothing. We must stake everything, our lives, our property, our honor on the protection of this nation. Because if we do not, we will not have a nation anymore. And I'm afraid we're very, very close to just that. But we cannot do it through violence. We cannot do it through conflict. This must be done in the least destructive way possible. Because a patriot is defined as one who loves and defends his country. But if you love something, then destruction can never be an optional outcome for that's loved. So patriotism then is not a call to arms. It's not go get guns, let's go fight a war, let's kill our brothers and sisters. Patriotism is a dialogue between your fellow man and a larger world as a whole about not only what is good about your country, but how it can be better. Because a patriot will never, never, never seek destruction of that he loves. I love my country. And I know that real power doesn't come by a gun. Real power doesn't come by a badge or a title or attorney general. Real power comes by your words. Because if you can influence others in their future decision, you have power, right? So listen to the words I'm saying and understand that they come with power. They come with power. And so when you think that we don't have the power to be able to do this, listen to my words, right? Listen to how effective they are. Because we can influence those 9 people in their future decisions. Because if they make the wrong decision here, they will have nothing. They will lose it all, right? Because there's 330 million people across the United States of America, but there's 9 of them leading 40,000 judges. They don't have to be in that office. It is an honor to be able to serve the people of the United States. I'm honored to be able to be out doing this right now. It's not a privilege. It's not a right. It's an honor. And we need to bring that honor back to this nation by installing individuals that act honorably. Because just as Justice Hugo Black said in 1960, honorable men honor the law. So if you don't honor the law, you have no honor. And we want those 9 justices to understand that today, you have no honor. None. At all. And I'll be damned if I'm going to call you honorable. Therefore, I'm not going to ask you. I'm not going to treat you honorably. I'm going to tell you you're my servant. I'm going to order you to do what you're legally obligated to do. If you don't want to do it, then I don't think you're going to be a servant for very much longer.
How true. You know, actions speak louder than words. Tanaway, I think that what you're doing is exemplary, and I mean that. I wish you nothing but the very, very, and pray for you, blessings of good fortune through God, and what you're doing for technically mankind, what I feel to be, we're on the brim of. But we're not doing this with vengeance, folks. In the case of, I know myself, and I believe in Carol at this point, of which I've only heard her situation for just but a few hours, it's a vindication. It's the clearing of one's respectable name. And that is really the only thing you were given at birth, was you were given a name. And it was up to you to have a good name or a bad name. And when it hits to a situation like right now, where she's been labeled this, we want to clear up her name, folks. That's what we want to do. And again, like Tanaway said, can't do it with war, blood, bullets, guns, knives, pipes, whatever. No, you have to do it with the words to the courts and hopefully some actions to follow shortly after that. So, Tanaway, thank you. Carol, thank you very, very much. Anything more, you guys? Carol, anything more?
No.
All right.
Thank you so much, Carol. Everybody, we've got a number of additional stops. We want to hear your stories. Okay. Hopefully, Vincent and I will be able to work together. We're not going to be on site like we are right now together because we're about to hit the road and get on down. We got a lot of stops still to go. But I want to hear from you guys. Okay. We want to hear these stories. I'm going to be spending a lot of time in this bus, and I know that Vincent here, we've got a couple other podcasts. We want to hear your stories, and I want to do this now. I want to do this over and over and over again. I want you guys to tell your story. If you have never had your story told, let me know, right? Let this team know, and let's get you on here to tell your story, and let me explain to the people of the United States what has happened to you and your family, okay? Thank you so much. God bless all of you.
All right, folks, I'm going to say this and then close with this. This is where you get your free ammo. No, we're not. I'm not talking about missiles and rockets and all that stuff. I'm talking ammo. Alternative mass media outlet. This is real life, folks. This is really going on. And you're a big part of it. And the biggest part you could be is to get this out, share it, like it, pass it forward, pass it around. June 6th is coming in less than really 3 weeks, almost about 3 weeks. Let's get this going, folks. In the meantime, God bless all of you. We love you. From the bottom of my heart, peace out. Thank you.